Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the TCT Podcast here on YouTube. My name is Gavin Campbell. Alongside me, as always, Tyson Snyder, Cale Fleming. Joining us again today, a reoccurring guest on the show. Jake Stevenson is on the phone with us. He's going to be joining us to talk about some Illinois basketball recruits for this upcoming year, as well as some MLB and just a touch of NBA. Jake, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, good to be back, boys.
We're happy to have you back, as always. We know that you're quite the expert on Illinois sports, and we know when you were here the first time we touched on Illinois football recruits and things like that. Now we're talking Illinois basketball. What do you think overall of the recruiting class that's coming in this year?
I think a lot of people are going to be down saying that you're taking a lot of flyers on three-star guys, things like that. But when you look at how much roster Brad Underwood actually had to fill, I think he did a fantastic job of getting people that can play in his system, which is a positionless, very athletic system that you can't have a lot of traditional players in. So it really fits the new scheme of player, and he got some guys that really fit that mold.
So, with this positionless style of play that Underwood wants to run, essentially, how is this going to work in the Big Ten? Because, you got schools like Michigan or Michigan State that run a traditional big man, your traditional 1 through 5, basically. So how do you think that this positionless system is going to fit into the Big Ten? Are we going to be able to win games, or are we going to be able to see an NCAA tournament in the future with this positionless system? What do you think?
I think there's a couple levels to it. First off is that we're going to have players that can still fit that traditional basketball. You'll see guys like we'll talk about De La Rosa, who's a big body banger, just like, traditional guys we've seen in the league, is Shaq, things like that. So he'll be able to play those guys if we need him to. We got, Georgie Bashanchevili, who can play traditional power forward, but in this positional system, we're going to see him play a little bit more 5. In reality, though, basketball is all kind of pushed in this way. We saw Villanova win national championships this way, where they're playing this positionless, 4-guard, 1-forward type scheme, which is turning into college basketball in a whole. So I don't think that you're going to see them have trouble competing against other teams. Another thing about Underwood's system that makes it kind of unique is their little high press, full court, up-tempo defense, which really pushes the issue of not even letting teams get the ball down low to a big guy like that, big old 7-footer who can jam it. They're going to make the guards make decisions and issues well before they get to that side of the court, and that's going to help keep it out of those hands as well. So I think there's a lot of promise. It can play with just about anybody. We've seen it work too. The longer these guys get in the system and get stronger and get faster, it's just going to look better.
Well, and we saw a lot of that last year, a lot of high energy defense and whatnot. That was one thing they weren't really lacking on, was energy. They were all over the court all the time. Now, whether or not they won those games, it didn't happen as often as we'd have liked, but it worked out really well. So I'm excited, like you said, we'll have those guys, another year of experience, couple years for some of the guys, getting into that Big Ten play. And I don't think it's actually going to turn out too bad for us, even though it's not a conventional Big Ten style. Just based on the rankings this year for the recruiting classes, depending on which website you look at, who you talk to, the Illini have the 4th or 5th best recruiting class this year in the Big Ten. Overall, that puts them anywhere from 23 to 18, once again, depending on where you look at, for recruiting class out of all the NCAA Division I schools. So, like you were talking about earlier, he did a great job filling holes. They had so many guys leave, and he filled it with 3-star guys, 4-star guys. It doesn't really matter, but he filled it with decent guys that fit his scheme. And like you were saying, Jake, I think it's going to work out well for him, especially once they get a little bit of playing time under their belt.
One question that I want to ask you, Jake, is we know the Big Ten is really a top 2 or 3 conference in the entire nation. And with that said, the Big Ten usually has their traditional ACC tournament every year. And when that's going on, the competition I wouldn't say is as high as it is when we do interconference play. I think that we'll do pretty well against the ACC. But when it comes to Big Ten conference play, how do you expect this team this upcoming year to perform in those games?
Well, the way I look at it, and you guys touched on on having ACC being a little bit of our out-of-conference opponent. What I'm looking more is the Maui tournament. I don't know if you guys saw that. There's going to be a lot of great competition there that will battle test these young guys and learn how to play. And then once we hit Big Ten play, I'm looking to expect, grad transfer Adonis De La Rosa to come in and really give that body presence that we need, while these young guys having actually developed and learned how to play against top flight opponent in that Maui tournament and the ACC challenge, things like that. Because while it's great to beat Longwood State or whoever early in the year, we saw Mark Smith go off against these out-of-conference lower-level teams. Even Division II teams, my McKendree Bearcats played Illinois 2 years ago. So that's all fine and dandy, but when you actually play a high-quality opponent, that's the only way to get better.
Absolutely. Now, having that said, when it comes down to it and, every team makes the Big Ten tournament, are we going to see a first-round exit this time around, or do you think that we might be able to win one, maybe 2 games this year?
And that'll probably be more about what the scope of the team looks like there, how comfortable they are. But you got to think that a team that can press like that can stay alive in most games. That's something that, as long as you got guys that can make shots, and I think we got a lot of shot makers on this team.
Oh, yeah.
If you can press and you can make shots, you can get in a game in a hurry and take a game clear out of contention in a hurry if you play that system. So I think they can hang with anybody, and they can get 1 or 2 rounds, but we'll have to see what the health is and what kind of momentum they have going into the tournament, because that's always a big thing with the Big Ten tournament, is who has momentum going in. We've seen Michigan be not as great a team. They'll get hot for the Big Ten tournament, then find themselves in the NCAA tournament just from momentum alone.
So going off of shot creation, we all know that Trent Frazier likes to shoot the ball, and he can shoot the ball very, very effectively. We saw it last year, even though Tevion Jones was supposed to be the guy that Illinois relied on. It was completely flipped, and Trent Frazier was the man. What did he drop again? We talked about it. He dropped 34 points against Wisconsin. That's saying something.
7 3-pointers.
Yeah, Wisconsin's an amazing team. They always have been, and they probably will be for a long time. But going off of that, Trent Frazier likes to shoot from the outside. You tweeted out also, or retweeted a tweet from Adam Fletcher with his workout schedule or regiment this summer of him getting to the ball and getting the ball up to the rim. So with that being said, Trent Frazier being able to shoot from the outside and get the ball to the rim effectively, which he's been able to do, or he was able to do last year, but being able to do that a little bit better, do you think that will hinder other players on the floor with that mentality that Frazier has, or do you think it'll do nothing but improve and help?
And, well, you see, I think getting more aggressive like that in Frazier is going to help everybody. Anybody that's an Illinois fan, I highly recommend following Adam Fletcher, the strength and conditioning coach, to see the development of our players. He'll usually do a picture before and after just this summer, and you can see how guys develop. And Trent is definitely one of those guys. He's showed a video of him taking a backdoor cut and putting it up above the rim, yamming it. And that's really a sign for Illinois fans to be really excited about, because these athletes are just getting more and more just explosive, which is something we haven't had really in Illinois sports. I'm thinking the last true explosive athlete on the basketball court was Joseph Bertrand, in terms of a guy that could just go up and just slam it. And Kipper's got some of that in him too. But to be able to develop athletes more and more, we're going to see great things. And it's also promising when you think about a guy like Samba Kane, who needs to get bigger and in a hurry, and Fletcher can do that, so that's a great follow. But anyways, in terms of Frazier being a more dominant ball guy, I think that's something Illinois has really planned for. They've got shooters in this recruiting class. We'll talk about Tevion Jones and Alan Griffin, who can spot up. And then also people are going to say, yeah, Io, who's a ball-dominant guard. But in reality, his last year of high school, he deferred quite a bit to Adam Miller on that Morgan Park team. He's pretty comfortable playing off ball, moving around, getting himself open, and then if he has to create on his own, but he's not reliant on having the ball like some guards.
Real quick, I want to touch on, you said Tevion Jones is a spot-up shooter, and we know that he can do that. But when you look at his highlight tapes, we do see a bit of an athlete in Jones, not at the level of Bertrand, like you said, but maybe a little below that. And I do think that he's very capable of, like you said, throwing the ball down. Is this something that, if once he becomes more comfortable with the college environment, that we could see more of in his game?
Oh, absolutely. I think Tevin Jones has the ability to be a guy you can ISO and just let him go to work. And if he wants to step back, pull up, if he wants to drive and hammer it down, if he wants to pull up from way deep, Steph Curry range, like, he can find that in his game. But just all these young guys to be able to just play off of guys who have experience is going to be huge early, and then just developing at their own pace. And people can get frustrated, like we talked about. You know, Mark Smith, we don't want to talk about it, but, you know, he didn't develop the way he wanted to. Big Ten play was kind of tough for him, and he forced the issue, and it ended up being not a lot of playing time for him, a lot of turnovers, a lot of missed shots because he couldn't get comfortable in a groove. So it's important, I think, that we just let all of these freshmen come into their own, because they're going to have to play. There's no doubt about it. But can they just find their rhythm early? And we saw that, and, you know, Trent Frazier able to find that. So it's not impossible, but just you give him time.
Well, and to kind of piggyback off of that, I think that's exactly right. All these freshmen need to kind of come into their own. So to go on that original thought, Frazier likes to shoot the ball. He's going to shoot it a lot. I don't think that's a bad thing, because he's going to shoot. All these young guys know it's Frazier's team. He came out and balled out last year, and he claimed it. It's his. So I think he's going to shoot as much as he wants, and as long as he's hitting them, he's going to keep shooting. And all that's going to do is create open looks for other guys and get everybody else in the game. So I don't have a problem with Frazier taking control of everything, shooting 10 threes a game if he really wants to. So I think Frazier, we don't have a problem there, and I really think it's going to help those young guys like you touched on, help them kind of come into their own, especially guys like Io and Tavion Jones. Help them settle in, get used to the game, maybe not take that punch straight up front because they got this guy with a little bit of experience and a little bit of gumption in him to kind of help him along the way. Give him a little kickstart. Excited for Tavion Jones. You said this guy, he's a beast. Do it all, inside, outside. So I think Frazier taking the ball as much as he's going to, it helps with that ISO on Jones. Draw some of the crowd away from him, so it's not a 4-on-1.
I think that we can all agree that Frazier is probably the most impactful player on this team as of this point in time. But I want to know, Jake, out of all of the recruits that we're bringing in right now, who are you most looking forward to, or who would be your favorite of this class?
You know, I'm glad you asked that because I'm a little bit different than most people. Like you said, people want to be excited about Io and Tavion Jones. But for me, I got two guys I really like. One's Alan Griffin. If you watch this kid play, he has more confidence than he knows what to do with. He's lighting it up from everywhere on the court.
Right.
And the thing I like about him is he's a long athlete. I feel like we haven't had a lot of long athletes, guys that just eat up space with their arms and their wingspan. It can also go up and slam it and just guard and block shots well from a guard position. I don't think we've had that in a while. And he's 6'5", but he's super long. He can scratch his knee standing straight up. I swear. And that's something out of a wing defender, you'd like to have that a lot. So Alan Griffin, if you watch his videos of him playing some of this New York style state tournament, it's kind of different there, so I can't call it like state championship. But he went out and balled out in this tournament, and he had the green light to shoot from anywhere on the court. And that's something that you don't have to teach, and it's something that transfers immediately to Big Ten play, because if you can shoot, you can shoot. There's no doubt about that. And if you get open, you're going to hit shots. I like him a lot for that in terms of defense, as well as being just a spot-up shooter to space the floor. Also, I like our recent signing of Anthony Higgs. This kid is perfect for Brett Underwood's positionless system. I can't even speak enough on how perfect he is. Kid jumps out of the gym. Another thing, like I said, we haven't had that type of athleticism lately, but he jumps out of the gym. 6'8", he could play the Draymond Green small ball 5 type position that Brad Underwood's looking for against smaller teams, and play it well because he has great defensive ability, great instincts, and he can go up and send a shot like a big, a 5 guy, a 7-footer, doesn't matter. He's up there and he's going to send it off the backboard. He's got crazy athleticism, and I was so happy to see him sign because I think he's perfect for this system.
So real quick, a little bit on Higgs, because when we talked about the Illini recruits a couple of weeks ago on one of our previous episodes, Higgs was not a commit. He was being looked at, but he did not hard commit to the University of Illinois. Higgs was originally committed to Ole Miss, decommitted because their coach left. And then he got some other Power 5 offers, one of those including Louisville, which we know Louisville's having some issues with the NCAA. So how do you feel that impacted his decision to come to the University of Illinois, and he saw what Brad Underwood is doing with this system?
I really like to think that he saw his position in the system and knew he was wanted. At the end of the day, it's hard to say what it is. I'm sure it's really lucrative to go to Louisville. Say went to Louisville, they've had all sorts of guys, Donovan Mitchell, Terry Rozier, that are playing in the league right now, playing well, regardless of what they can actually do in the tournament. But I think, in my mind, being a person that wants to see the best in Illinois, I hope he saw a position in this team where he can play and play early. But that's just me.
I definitely think that this is a guy that can come off the bench, and I'm not trying to put any labels on anyone, but when I see this guy, I want to compare him to Roger Powell from way back in the day. Just that overall attitude and being the athlete that he is, and kind of just doing a little bit of everything. Like you said, Draymond Green-esque type of player. Is this something that we can expect of Higgs in the future?
I think that's definitely his role early, is just being that enforcer, coming in off the bench, playing a 4 or a 5 spot. He's listed as a small forward, but in this system, it doesn't really matter. It's more of, are you a guard or are you a wing?
Right, he's 6'8", so he can play. He can play everywhere.
It's kind of like LeBron. You want him to bring the ball up, he'll bring the ball up. You want him to play center, he'll play center. You want him on the wing, hell, he'll go on the wing.
Yeah, that's no problem for him, and I think he'll understand his role, especially when he realizes how valuable it is. It won't matter what he's actually doing, but definitely a lot of athleticism, attitude from in the post spot. I don't think he's going to back down from anybody, any challenge. We get to see, this is just from my film, he plays with some swagger, and I don't think he's going to get discouraged easily, and I really like what I see from this. Like I said, I've texted other Illinois fans, and I was off the wall, over the moon excited when he signed.
So, real quick, we got one more recruit we need to touch on real quick that we didn't get. Adonis De La Rosa coming out of Kent State. He's a big man, 7 foot, 261 pounds, big body, big frame, big presence for the Big Ten. One thing I did notice about him is that he was in foul trouble quite a bit in his time at Kent State. Not only that, he was averaging about 3 turnovers a game. But those turnovers came on the offensive end with them offensive fouls, which is also at the same time kind of a double whammy. So how do you feel about De La Rosa? Do you think he'll be able to kind of calm down on those fouls in the Big Ten, or do you think it's going to be worse? Or what's just your overall prediction of De La Rosa?
Honestly, with De La Rosa, I think a lot of Illinois fans need to kind of temper what he's going to be. It's really nice to see this shiny new big man and think he's going to come in and dominate in the Big Ten, because that's what it's all been all about. But in reality, I just look at De La Rosa as 5 more fouls that we can have, and a guy that also rebounds well, especially from the offensive end. So I'm not looking at him to be the man in the post by any means. I don't think we necessarily need a guy to be the man, but just as somebody that if there is a big body beating up on guys like Samba Kane, Georgie, Kipper, that he can come in and he can set the tone. And if he's got a foul, he's got a foul. But in the end of the day, he's going to rebound. He's going to hit the offensive glass really good, putbacks. And, I mean, like I said, I don't think that he's necessarily vital to the team to be successful, but he is a guy that has 5 more fouls, which was 5 more fouls than we had a month ago when we were missing scholarships left and right. So,
one last question, Jake, before we move on here. The overall prediction I want to get from you for the upcoming season here. We were 14-18 last year. Is this something that they can improve on? Are we looking at 20 wins this year, or is that being too optimistic?
Well, it's tough to say right now. I'd really like to see if they get another fifth-year guy to just fill out this roster, which I don't know that they necessarily will. This is going to hinder a lot on the development of these young guys. And also, example, we signed Andrew Andres Feliz, JUCO guy, does he end up meshing well with the team, or do we see another Mark Allstorp where he just struggles to find his spot? It's tough to say. He doesn't seem like he's going to play like that, and it's tough to just compare players like that, especially ones who don't play the same position necessarily. But is he going to fit in well? Are the freshmen going to have their learning curve, or are they going to take it in stride? Who's going to step up? I think Trent's still going to get buckets. I believe we can be a bubble team at the end of the season, but tough to say. A lot of variables, especially if you see like maybe Trent get hurt or something. They really struggle to find who's going to score early. It could get ugly with all the freshmen learning like that, but I'm optimistic on the season, I'd say.
Absolutely. So would you say a hard prediction right now, if you were to call it, how many wins for the Illini this year?
I can comfortably say that they'll flip that record and go 18-14.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, pretty comfortably. I mean, that's fine with me. No doubt, you can lock that right on the board. Can they get to 20 wins? Sure. That defense that they're going to run is going to keep them in games that they shouldn't be in, I'd say, especially if they all buy into the system. We could sniff 20 wins, no doubt, in my mind. Like, there's a possibility. And like I said, any team that gets hot in the tournament can go do crazy things. You never know what's going to happen. The Big Ten tournament is such a fun, amazing tournament to watch. It's like you're getting teased before the real deal, and it's just anything could happen.
Jake, I really appreciate you waking up at 7:30 in the morning to be on with us on a Friday morning. Appreciate all your insight today. So with your hard prediction, like I say, nothing but our Illinois insider. We really appreciate your time with us. Like I say, man, we're going to go ahead and move on. We're going to move on to some MLB talk real quick.
Absolutely. We
got the MLB Home Run Derby. Tyson, what do you think?
Oh, well, you looking at it's a pretty good field this year. Not as many home runs from the contestants as the last few years. Missing a couple big names in this: Giancarlo Stanton, Aaron Judge, Mike Trout. A couple big name guys are gone. But other than that, the field looks really good. Happy to see two Cubbies in there, looking sharp. Both 17 and 18 for Schwarber and Baez. But it's looking like we've got a decent chance the Cubs do taking home a little bit of hardware this year, coming on opposite sides of the field. The one matchup I'm really excited for, though, not because it's a Cubs matchup, is Max Muncy and Javi Baez. Muncy's got a .614 slug percentage. He's only had 210 at-bats, and he's got 21 home runs. Now, Baez has a .559 slugging percentage, but he's had 329 at-bats and 18 home runs. So he's over 100 at-bats more and 3 home runs less, but we all know Baez can swing that bat. So that one's going to be a good matchup for me. Javi's hitting it really well right now. Muncy he's got the second best slugging percentage in the field right now behind Jesus Aguilar with a .638 slug. So that's the matchup I'm really excited for. If I had to make my predictions, I'm saying Aguilar beats Hoskins in the first round. I got Schwarber over Alex Bregman. I got Harper beating Freddie Freeman in a close one, and Baez over Muncy. And then in the second round, I took Schwarber over Aguilar in an upset, beating the top seed, and Baez going down to Harper, and I've got Harper beating Schwarber to round it out.
So, real quick, there's a lot of controversy that rolls around this home run derby. There's people that say this home run derby shouldn't exist because it alters people's swings for the second half of the year, or the fact, because there's one thing, the home run derby's out there for people just to absolutely demolish balls, and we know that. The home run derby is amazing to watch. Now, whether that alters people's swings or not, it doesn't matter. The home run derby's out there just to relieve some stress and to have some fun. That's all it's for. So I just kind of wanted to get your guys' opinions on this because there's a lot of different ones. Should this home run derby exist?
I can tell you whose swing it won't alter, and that's Javi Baez, because that dude swings for the fence every time he swings anyway. But I don't see it that way. It might, but then again, we're halfway through the season. These dudes have already played 80 games or more. It's a great way for some of these guys to just blow off some steam, for the fans to just see some cool hits. I don't really have a problem with it. If it alters their swing, that's their own problem. They can always change it back. They got batting coaches for a reason. So I don't think it's too big of a deal. What's your thoughts, Gav?
No, I wouldn't say it's a big deal either. I mean, I look at this like I would like the NHL Skills Challenge or the NBA Dunk Contest. You know, it's just something fun. It's for the fans. It draws in revenue. You know, and that's when you come down to us, professional sports is right. It's a business. They want to make the money. And how do you make money? You keep what's been a tradition for how many years now? You know. And yes, there's always the complaints of like, oh, well, we don't want the players hurting themselves. We don't want them overdoing it. We don't want them altering anything they've been doing the entire season, right? Mm-hmm. But, I mean, with that said, really, how bad can it be? You know, how bad can it be? I mean, you go and even if you win the whole thing, you only have to do it 3 times.
Right. And they changed the formatting as well.
Right.
Absolutely. So it's a lot less swings now. It used to be you swung in the first round that you had 10 outs.
Right.
Now you don't do that anymore. It's like, you get a minimum of like 15 or 20 swings or something. I can't remember the exact formatting, but remember back in the day when me and you were kids, all of us were kids, it used to be 10 outs. So now that they've kind of upped those out or lowered those outs a little bit, it's a little bit easier on that swing and that body, so that way there's not near as much rotation, gyration, anything you want to talk about.
Right.
So, I don't know. I agree with you guys. There's a whole lot of perspective that goes into it. These people that say that this home run derby is nothing but a cancer essentially are wrong.
Well, and I want to touch on that is I think it comes down to all of, you know, the trainers and the fitness freaks and nutritionists and all the stuff that say, you know, you already go through 162 games in a season. Why put yourself through this again? When I look at it as you're putting yourself through maybe 2 or 3 more games doing this home run derby, depending on how many times you take a swing at the ball, right? So if you already play 162, what's 165? 166 games, you know? Exactly. And it's really a head scratcher to me. I can see where they're coming from, but it shouldn't be to the point where, you know, you just get rid of it. I mean, it's fun, right? At the end of the day, it's fun.
Well, and this can't really be bad for the league. It's 8 guys. You know how many guys there are on MLB rosters throughout the league? A lot more than 8. So saying this is bad for the league, it might be bad for those 8 guys, but then again, I just don't really see it. And at the end of the day, you got to give the fans what they want. I know a lot of people that don't watch baseball that tune in for the home run derby. You're taking baseball's most exciting thing and putting it all in once for a couple hours at a time and just letting guys launch home runs. So at the end of the day, you got to give the fans what they want to see. You got to get those home runs out there. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yep. So
exactly.
Stick with the home run derby.
And if it's not just 8 guys. I mean, these are 8 of the top 15 hitters in baseball, you know. And that may be a stretch for some people. Some people may want to argue that, but just, you know, as a generalization, that's what they're doing here. It's not just, you know, taking random people up to the plate and having them try to hit home runs. These guys want to hit the ball. They want to hit it 400, 450 feet, you know, every single time they get up there.
So for me, Tyson already went with his prediction. I got Schwarber beating Harper in the final round as well.
So we got to the final 2 together, though.
Yeah, but I got Schwarber winning the whole thing. Javi, I feel like he's going to give Muncy run for his money. Max Muncy, I've never really heard of him much before until this season. Javi, everybody's heard of Javier Baez. Jesus Aguilar, though, he can swing a big stick. He can up there and he can hit some moonshots. So I'm kind of excited about that Jesus Aguilar and Royce Hoskins matchup. Those guys are some pretty heavy hitters as well. But like you said, I would like to see Stanton and Judge in it, even though if one of those 2 guys or even both of them were in it, we know who would win. But minus Harper or Trout, though, because I feel like Harper or Trout could give them guys a challenge. But, you know, those are the 2 best home run hitters in the league. You can't deny that fact. So the fact that they're not in it is kind of like going back to the NBA All Star contest as well with the dunk contest. You got guys like LeBron or Westbrook that we want to see in there that aren't in it.
Right.
So I wouldn't mind watching Westbrook in a dunk contest.
Oh, absolutely.
That's something for another day. But, you know, watching the 2 best hitters in the league, essentially, when it comes to home runs, would have been a lot more interesting to see. But I'm not really all that upset that they're not in it. Give them a break. You know, we'll just have to see what they do in the second half of the season.
I had Aguilar and Harper in the finals, and that's no disrespect to the Cubs players that are in this or anyone else for that matter. I think everyone that's in this competition is well deserved, but I had Aguilar winning it over Harper just because Harper's been underperforming this year, and that Aguilar has, probably a top 5 swing in baseball. So
I was actually going to comment on Bryce Harper. I picked him to win it, but he actually has the lowest slugging percentage in the field of the home run derby this year at 468. That is the lowest of all the 8 guys in it. He does have the second most home runs, but he hasn't really been hitting the ball well this year. He hasn't been hitting it more often than not. It just so happens that when he does make contact, it goes over the fence. That is an interesting pick. I can respect that. Aguilar's got almost a 200% or two full points better than Harper in that slugging percentage category.
Well, one thing is you've been touching on the past couple of weeks, both of you actually, is that Harper has not been putting up Bryce Harper numbers like he has in the past.
It goes back to the whole left-handed power hitter thing with that extreme exaggerated shift. That plays with your psyche because when you go up to bat, you step in that batter's box up the on-deck circle, and you see these guys just start walking over to the other side of the right side of the field. You got your second baseman clear back and playing shallow right center. You got your third baseman right behind second base and your shortstop. Who knows where your shortstop's at? But you got this exaggerated shift that happens. So that goes up and that messes with your head. That messes with your psyche. You cannot hit a ball, that hard.
A lot of dudes to look at.
Yeah.
It's hard to pick a spot to put it.
And as a left-handed power hitter, most of the guys are not going to hit the ball to the left side of the field. It's just not going to happen because that's not what they do. So, in my opinion, to get Bryce Harper out of this little slump he's in and get his head back in with not to look at this shift the way he's looking at it, lay down a bunt to the third base line like Kyle Schwarber does. He's done it 3 times this year to beat that shift. So, it may not be the best thing. You don't want to see a guy like Bryce Harper laying down bunts all the time.
Right.
But it gets you on base, gets you that on-base percentage up, your batting average up, and your slugging percentage up. So it's just a little cheap, easy way, going back to old-fashioned baseball to beat that exaggerated shift.
I think it's like you said, it comes down to a mental thing. And Harper, he's not going up to the plate like, I'm not going to bunt. I'm not going to lay down a bunt,
And right. Maybe if he had that mentality a little bit more, he'd be like, okay, well, these guys are going to shift on me. I'm going to play old-fashioned baseball, and I'm going to beat these guys.
Right.
Lay down a bunt to that third base side of that pitcher. You can force that pitcher to make a play. And the pitchers, as we all know, don't want to make plays if they don't have to.
Right.
So if Harper could get that out of his head, the fact that he could beat that shift somehow, then he would be back to normal Bryce Harper standards.
Absolutely.
Teach him to switch hit.
I think it's a little too late to teach him to switch hit. But
yeah.
So let's move on a little bit. The Yankees.
Oh, yeah.
The Yankees, the New York Yankees. Oh, the New York Yankees. The fact that they've made the strongest offer for Manny Machado.
Always sticking their nose in everything.
I feel like he's going to go to New York as well. Because I feel like anybody in the NL would have to give up way too much. The Yankees can afford it. My question is that I have for Tyson and Gavin is what are they going to do with Didi Gregorius? I can't pronounce his last name. Gregorius, thank you. What are they going to do with him? He's not a slouch of a shortstop, but Manny Machado is also 3 times the player.
My one thing is they don't really need Machado. No. Machado's a great player.
Yeah.
It would be amazing to have him, but Didi's not playing bad. He's batting .260. He's got 16 home runs. 49 RBIs, 10 stolen bags this year, and he's 2.5 in the WAR category, wins above replacement.
That's pretty good.
He's playing well. So I don't really know why they would want to just kick him to the curb, get out of here. So there's not really anything to do with him, unless you want to move Machado to third and keep Didi at short. But I don't know. And my other thing is, why would the Orioles trade their best player to a division rival?
To know that they're going to seal a World Series title with that.
Right.
Another one.
Yeah, so that one's still I'm trying to wrap my head around that, too. I'm sure Machado would love to go to the Yankees.
Oh, yeah.
He would love it.
Oh, yeah.
Hell, he'd probably sign another deal and stay there for 10 years. But I just don't have I don't think the Orioles would love it as much as the Yankees would and Machado would. Because they're going to be hurting for years to come if they make that trade.
I'm wondering if the Yankees are doing this in spite of Machado going to the Brewers or the Cubs, knowing that the Yankees have the potential to reach the World Series and don't want to go up against him in the World Series, knowing that they could have had him.
That's a good point. they're just soaking up all the best free agents there are out there. So
Which
that
is-
way they can't get to the National League.
Exactly. That's the New York way to do it.
Because they've already got to beat Boston.
Right.
You got to think about that. They've already got to beat Boston out in the regular season title.
But we've seen them already this season more than capable of doing so.
Yeah.
Even though the Red Sox, I believe we talked about this before we started today's show, they've got to be the best team in baseball right now. I know I tried to argue that last week with you, and you know what? I got to come around and say it hands down. I don't know who right now can beat this team.
The Yankees. That's it.
Right.
And Yankees and possibly the Astros are the only two teams in this league that can beat the Cubs. Wouldn't stand a chance against the Yankees. I don't feel like they'd have the bullpen.
Take it back.
I'm being a realist. As big as a Cubs fan as I am, I'm being a realist. I don't think we have the bullpen strength to beat the Yankees. That's the only reason, because our starting pitching sure as hell ain't going to beat the Yankees, except for one guy, and that'd be John Lester. But, well, because
They have been coming around, though. Quintana put up a good outing. Shutout for his outing. Hendricks put up a good outing. So they have been coming around. Now, I know that's a small sample. They've all had one good game in a row now.
Right. But that's a start.
Right.
If they
can continue that to the end of the year where they have to play the Yankees, they're in a really good position. But they have to get there first.
Yeah, we still got a long way to go.
Well, that, and it's going to come down to the All Star game, unfortunately. If the National League can clinch that victory for the World Series, if the Cubs make it there, I think playing at Wrigley, even though when they won it in 2016, it really wasn't that big of a factor being down 3-1, right?
No, not with Wrigley Field.
But the comeback was real.
Yes.
Okay. I think with New York, it's a different thing, because Cleveland, we know how they are fans. You know, their fans are how their fans feel about their team, right? We know
everybody in Cleveland blows 3-1 leads. So.
Absolutely.
Or gets swept.
Or that too. But what I'm trying to say is Cleveland fans, they love their team, because we've seen it with the Cavs. You know, LeBron being there. We've even seen it with the Cleveland Browns. Their team has been trash for the past 2 decades, but they show up all the time.
Yep.
Right.
Welcome to the dog pound.
Browns going 9-7.
Oh,
we'll save that for a different day. But the point I'm trying to make is New York fans, they're kind of flaky. You know, they're Yankees fans to be Yankees fans. Mm-hmm. And I think if the Cubs are able to have home field advantage and they make it that far, and let's say they even acquire Machado somehow, we know that they're not in the top tier to compete with getting Machado in a deal. But if they were to acquire him, and it was that team versus the Yankees as currently constructed, I think they've got a more than a great chance to win.
I agree with you.
Even without Machado, I think they have a chance to win.
Except for one thing. Outside of the Bronx, they're fair weather fans. Inside the Bronx, they're super fans, just like we are the Cubs.
Right. I got to give them that.
You got to look around. You got all these, even in Illinois, and I'm going to use an example, being a Blue Jays fan.
Right.
At least you can back up everything you say with stats. You walk around with all these people wearing Yankees gear.
And they couldn't tell you.
Ask them anybody that plays for them besides Derek Jeter or A-Rod.
Yeah.
They can't name
They have
anybody.
no idea.
So they're fair weather fans. They're only going to watch when they're in the playoffs and being in the World Series. Like right now, they're probably watching every game. But I understand there are some people, that do really care about the Yankees. And if you do, I don't really understand why, other than you hopped on the bandwagon. That's about it.
That's for me. Is anyone outside of New York, if you're a Yankee fan,
outside of the Bronx,
right? Yeah, for not even the entire state.
Wrong.
If you can't name, at least a couple players on this team currently, it's more of a detriment to like what we have to deal with as sports fans, and just the bandwagons upon bandwagons.
It's like all
upon
these
bandwagons.
Golden State fans out here.
Yeah,
absolutely. And every sport has it. Sport has it.
We have no business having any Golden State fans in Champaign, Illinois, unless they're from that area.
Yeah.
Amen.
So, but anyway, going back off of that, the Yankees, I feel like, are going to have the best chance of winning the World Series, but baseball is baseball.
Yes.
You never know what's going to happen. It can shift. It all depends on who gets hot and when at the right time, and the Cubs are heating up. Not only the Cubs are heating up, the Brewers are slowing down, so that's a good thing for us.
Like you gentlemen called 3 weeks ago. This
happens every year.
This would
Every
happen.
year.
Absolutely.
Come time for the break, they'll slow down to the break, and then they'll drop.
Shout out White Sox beating the Cardinals, helping us out.
Yeah.
Go Chicago teams.
That's something that I wanted to touch on is the Cardinals. They always seem to bounce back whenever they play the White Sox, and they did in their first game, and they put up 14 runs.
Yes.
But the second game, they completely flip-flopped and fell apart against probably a top 3 worst team in baseball. What happened?
They're the top 3 of the bottom quarters, so let's just go with that. Tyson, I want to get your take on this. Since they did put up 14 runs against the White Sox, do you think that kind of just quieted the bats for Game 2, and that's why they didn't have a runner cross second base until the 6th inning? I was at work and I was listening to that game on the radio. I was just trying to figure out what in the heck the Cards were doing. They just couldn't hit the ball. So do you feel like that when you put up that many hits in one game, do you come back the next night? Do you feel like that could hinder a player's performance?
Well, you kind of took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say exactly that. They ran out of juice. They used up all the sauce in the first game, and they had no more for the second one. Now, that's not always the case. We saw the Cubs put up over 10 runs 4 games straight a couple weeks ago. But for this Cardinals team, for who they've got, and their manager making the calls he's making, doing what he's doing, I think that's exactly what happened. I think they ran out of juice. They were either tired or just weren't seeing the ball very well, but they definitely had issues in that second game, and I think you nailed it on the head.
So real quick, about the Cardinals organization, I don't know, have you guys seen anything about what's going on inside that clubhouse?
I haven't been following anything after Dexter Fowler fired back with his comments.
Well, there's some other stuff going on inside that clubhouse now. This was a report posted from The Athletic that I actually heard on Tay and Carp the other day, stating that Mike Matheny and Dexter Fowler haven't talked since he's gotten there. It's been a year and a half, boys.
Holy
wow.
cow.
So they've talked in passing, but that's about it. They haven't sat down and had a meeting or anything. And the Mozeliak, the whole John Mozeliak, the comments, he was the person, their GM was the person that backed him the most, Dexter Fowler. So the fact that you got your guy that's backing you the whole time and coming out saying those comments about you, I just don't understand it. There's so much separation and so much controversy in that Cardinals clubhouse right now that, man, you can't pin everything on Matheny at this point, even though that's what everybody wants to do.
Sure can try, though.
You can try. You can pin everything on your manager because he's just there. He's the public face. So, but, man, most of this stuff you can't pin on Matheny. You got to pin it up top, but also at the same time, Matheny's got to do a lot better job than not talking to one of his outstanding star players for a year and a half.
The organization, it seems they're trying to tear themselves apart from the inside. Yeah. Every day we hear something new, and it's just not good, something new. Every day.
Apparently this whole Bud Norris thing now that came out, Bud Norris stating that, or Mike Matheny wanted him to go out and be in the bullpen or in the dugout and try to just find all of these issues that everybody, or things that everybody's saying about, Matheny or the front office. So that's just, I don't understand.
Well, I think this is the biggest issue, is that if we look at history and teams that have done this in the past, teams that have had internal issues, not just in the locker room, but front office and other things like that, is they've been unsuccessful. No one has ever been successful with toxicity in that kind of environment. So especially, you don't want to see this come from a team that's 5.5 games consistently out of second place in the NL Central, right? That's not how you get things done. So it looks like the Cardinals, like you said, are kind of unraveling here, and this is the beginning of the end of their season right now.
Yeah. You got anything?
Well, one thing I wanted to touch on. No, you're fine. Just real quick, I want to say thank you, Milwaukee Brewers, for losing to Pittsburgh. Thank you, Pirates.
Yes.
That really helped out. The Cubs are only 1 game back right now. Like you said, the Cubs are going to start gaining here, and I would not be surprised if after the All Star break, if in the next couple of weeks they have a game and a half lead over the Brewers.
They got the Padres this weekend, I believe.
Right, so. Last place in the NL West. Yep. So that'll definitely help them out if they can do what they're supposed to do, take care of business.
Pull out the brooms.
Right. Go ahead, Tyson.
Well, and as these playoff races start to heat up a little bit, as we move past the All Star break, I don't necessarily think it's going to be that the Cubs are taking off. I think they'll even out. They'll keep performing as they've been performing. They might even go up a step, but I don't think they're going to jump 5 steps up the stairs. I really think they're going to take command of first place, not because they're playing super great, but because the Brewers and Cards are going to tank and just fall off. I think within a few weeks we'll see Brewers and the Cards each 5 games behind at least.
So going off of that real quick, there's a couple things on our show notes we want to talk about, and what you just said there ties in perfectly. The Cubs have kept themselves in it without 2 key players, and that's the Brizzo Souvenir Corps. They haven't had KB. He's been hurt for the last, 2-3 weeks.
Yep.
Been on the DL. He's back. He came back, hit a 2-run bomb. So that's a good thing.
Off of Johnny Cueto,
Yeah.
who's an ace on just about any team.
Any team in the National League
Yep.
except for maybe a cut like 2. But he hit a bomb off of Johnny Cueto. Not only was it a bomb, it was a 2-run bomb. Good that he was back. Good he got a big league home run because he was crushing that game down in Double-A.
And that's exactly what you wanted to see from him coming back off of a scary injury,
He
too.
was 0-1, and he just came out and just let it fly.
And he took 2 walks. So not only is he coming back and hitting well, but he's being patient and seeing the ball well at the plate.
If you guys notice, KB's swing, since he's so long and so lanky, he's going to have some shoulder issues. He's got a wide, long swing. But, he's 6'4", so he's got a long wingspan and a lot of bat to carry through there. But he's also playing 162. Potentially in 2016, he played 182 games. So these guys playing all these games every year, with a minimal rest, that's going to affect your body and wear it down no matter how old you are, only being 24, 25. So, you got to expect that. But one key player, too, that they're missing out is Rizzo. And it's not because he's hurt. He had a little bit of a stint on the DL, but he just is not swinging the bat. He's swinging the bat, making solid contact. He's just hitting it right at the player. And he's battling the same thing that Bryce Harper is with that exaggerated shift. So, Tyson, what do you think about the Cubs?
Well, Rizzo, like you said, he's had a big issue this year. He's hitting 236 right now. He's a career 265 hitter. So he's never been phenomenal at the plate, hitting 4 out of 5 every game. But he does hit when we need him to. And this year he hasn't really been doing that either. So he's got 12 home runs so far. Each of the last 4 years he's hit 30+. And it's not looking like he's going to get close to that number if he keeps sitting out like he has been because he hasn't been hitting well. He's got 59 RBIs. That's actually a pretty good number right now.
That's a good number for everybody but Anthony Rizzo because at this time last year he had almost 73 or 74.
Like
so that's a good number for everybody but Anthony Rizzo.
Right. On-base percentage is .333. He's a career .365. His slugging's at .393 this year. Career .479. So both of those numbers are down. Big, important numbers for a guy that we need to get on the bag. Need to clear the bases out, and he's just not really hitting like he's supposed to.
He's usually reliable for Chicago, and like you said, Cale, with this shift, it's really messed with his psyche, and maybe he does need to take a Kyle Schwarber approach. Having two power hitter lefties on the same team. I mean, that definitely struggles when they're both in your lineup.
I'm telling you, with that exaggerated shift like that, you lay down a bunt, that's 2 hits. You got Schwarber and Rizzo.
Because they won't be able to run it if you consistently do it. They'll have to respect your ability to run.
There's one catcher that I would not bunt against on that exaggerated shift, and he just so happens to play for the Cubs, so they don't got to worry about it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So,
I did have one stat on Rizzo. This year, he is -0.1 in the WAR category.
whew!
I don't think he's ever been negative in his career. In fact, over his career, his WAR, wins above replacement, is 26.1.
This is killing him in that WAR category.
Yeah, that's an insane number, 26.1. And this year he is -0.1, meaning that it's almost not worth him being in the game because his replacement is playing better than he is.
Unless he can get his mentality back to
until he starts hitting again and starts. His defense hasn't really been an issue. But his offensive side of the ball, he's definitely been struggling, and you can see that just in that one stat in the WAR category. He's definitely been struggling. I don't know what he needs to fix it. Maybe it's not too big of an issue because we've got other guys stepping up. But I'd like to see him fix it soon and hope he can turn it around and pull together a good season.
If him and KB could switch their seasons around, we got a contender again. That's all we need is them 2 guys just to heat up.
Which they've still got half the season left to figure it out. It could very well happen.
It just sucks that the half of the season they have left is the most important half of the season of the year.
Absolutely. So it's figure it out sooner rather than later.
Hopefully right after the All Star break.
Right. But this is something interesting that I want to touch on. We're still going to stay in the National League here, but the NL West, this has surprisingly over the past couple weeks become who's gonna make the playoffs, who's gonna win the division, who's gonna get that wild card spot, because we have the LA Dodgers took over first place from the Arizona Diamondbacks. by half a game. Arizona gets really hot, they get really cold. It's on and off. And then we have the Colorado Rockies, really out of nowhere. I mean, they're 3 games back of the Dodgers right now at 48 and 45. Then you got the San Francisco Giants at 49 and 46, tied with Colorado for for the 3 spot. Those guys are only 2.5 games back of the wild card spot in the NL. So, I mean, who out of these 4 teams, really 2 out of the 4, would you expect to come out of this mess right now that we've got in the NL West?
So earlier we were talking about teams kind of rising and falling as the playoff race heats up coming out of the break. The 2 teams I picked were the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks. They're in 1st and 2nd right now. The Dodgers a couple weeks ago were in 3rd place, almost 4th, not playing very well. And they have shot up. They're I think they're 10 games above 500 right now. They're
51 and 42, yeah.
Yeah. They absolutely shot up. They started playing like the Dodgers are supposed to. I think they will continue to rise. The Diamondbacks, like you said, hot and cold, I think they'll continue to. I don't think they're going to rise up like the Dodgers, but I think they'll coast out through the season and finish well above 500.
Well, this is real quick. An interesting fact on the Dodgers is they have a better record playing away from home than they do playing in their own stadium.
They've had that for the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. Right.
They've always had a better away record than they have a home record.
And you would expect that to kind of maybe even out at some point or even flop.
Yeah.
But it's just a reoccurring thing.
They've been one of the teams that has been known for that in the sport of baseball, to win on the road as opposed to winning at home, which you have to do
weird
both.
And hard.
Yeah. You got them going into Wrigley Field, and they can take a game like there's no problem.
Yep.
I just don't understand how.
Which is hard because the Cubs play really well at Wrigley.
They're the best home team in the league right now, I think. Don't quote me on that. But
I'll fact check that.
They're like 34 and 10 or something at home.
LA can go into Wrigley Field and take a game like there's no tomorrow. I just don't understand it. They can go to the Bronx and take a game. So the fact that they can win on the road is what helps their chances. But they also haven't had a World Series ring yet. Mm-hmm. The Dodgers, the thing with them is that they've been so rendered with injuries this year that it's just absolutely killing them.
Boston has the best home record, by the way.
Imagine that. But
32 and 12.
But anyway, they've been so hurt this year with Justin Turner being on the DL, Kershaw being on the DL, Seager's out for the year, Bellinger had a stint on the DL, and the fact that they can still hang with the D-backs, who's not a slouch this year. They've got a lot of good starting pitching with Greinke being their ace, and they got Paul Goldschmidt, who can swing a heavy bat, and everybody knows that he has his whole career. So the fact that LA can stay right there with them is amazing. I still got Arizona winning that division, though, so I just feel like they're going to heat up again and they're going to stay hot.
So would you also have Arizona and LA as the division winner and wild card?
I could have LA as the wild card, yeah, because you got to think of it this way: the Dodgers always find a way to get into the playoffs. And I just don't feel like they are going to have enough steam to beat the Diamondbacks outright in the division.
Well, and I think Colorado and San Francisco being so close now, Colorado kind of making a charge back after they fell off, San Francisco making a charge up there, I think they're going to get into such a dogfight that it's going to hurt both of them. And I think both of them are going to fall out. And that's why I went with LA and Arizona.
Here's my thing, though, is my take on the Rockies is I wouldn't be surprised if they were able to snag a wild card spot at this point, only because they have no problem winning on the road. As I'm just now checking, they have a better road record than the Dodgers do, and the Dodgers are 6 games above 500 in their away record.
Well, you can thank Charlie Blackmon and Nolan Arenado for that. Yeah. Those 2 guys are their core, their center.
Yeah, well, and they keep winning because they were in the 4 spot a couple weeks ago. And now that they're knocking on the door of the 2 seed, only 2.5 games back, if Arizona keeps the cold streaks going, I see the Rockies making it in with the 5 seed.
Mm-hmm. It's a very well possibility. Like I said earlier, baseball is baseball. So sport like it, anything can change. It's not like the NBA or the NFL where you have a solid team that can just win. Like the Yankees right now trying to buy their championship, they may not even win it. They could get beat by somebody like the Dodgers, or the D-backs for that matter. So baseball is why I love it so much, is the fact that you can try to buy it. Sometimes you can win with a bunch of no-name players, which is what I like seeing.
Moneyball,
exactly.
Bean and some skinny jeans.
exactly.
Absolutely. Real quick, we're going to wrap up with a couple NBA transactions, if you will. Isaiah Thomas, the guy whose career has pretty much gone down the toilet since leaving Boston, He's signed a 1-year deal with the Denver Nuggets, veterans minimum. Imagine that. A guy that wanted to get a max contract is now signing a veterans minimum deal 2 years later. I want to get your guys' take on what does this mean for IT? What does this mean for Denver, his career, etc.?
With his social media game and everything that he says about him wanting to stop getting traded, well, maybe if you'd stop tweeting, you'd stop getting traded. I don't know. I hope he's done. I never have liked IT in the first place, so that's just me.
I like him. I think he's one of those guys. He's got that swagger. He's got that thing that guys look their whole careers for, and he found it as soon as he came in the league. I really want to see him recover and get better. And I talked about this with Boogie up in Golden State this year. I think he signed that veterans minimum so he can prove himself again, and get a big contract from any team that he wants next year. Now, why the Nuggets? I don't know why he chose the Nuggets. Probably because it was about the only team that signed him anymore.
Right.
Which doesn't make sense to me because dude was so good a couple years ago. I know it was a big injury, but I think it's hard to just throw that away.
I think that he was fighting so hard because he's 5'9". He's a small guy, and when you get hurt like that, even just a little bit, that's such a big step backward that you can't compete with all of the other. I don't want to say normal size guys because normal size in the NBA is like 6'7", right?
Yeah.
So
three times the size of us.
Right. The average height of a player in the NBA, it makes it a lot harder. People want to play him out to be this Nate Robinson type guy, but we didn't expect a whole lot out of Nate when he was in the league, and when he did something big, it was a big deal, right?
Right.
Isaiah Thomas, we expected him to be great after that year in Boston, and his decline, I think, really just kind of put a dampen on every expectation that we had, every aspiration that we had for him.
It wasn't a slope, it was a cliff.
Yeah, he just took a headfirst dive off of it, and not his fault. Injuries happen, and the NBA, you don't want any lower body injuries affecting you because that's pretty much your career in the toilet right there.
Especially as a guy that was already in a deficit, being undersized.
Right, but yeah, the Nuggets already have Jamal Murray, they have Gary Harris, Will Barton, all these guards, and then they go and add this guy who said that he wanted to be a starter. You're not going to be a starter. Let's get that clear. But we'll have to see what he's able to do. He's probably done after this year. If it was up to me, Cale, I'm sure you would agree with that.
Yeah, because I don't like him.
Well, he's gone.
I'll be very blunt about it.
And Tyson probably done after this year.
I think he'll play another 5 years, skirting around, $2 million a year.
Journeyman?
Yep, journeyman, jumping team to team.
All right, one more thing I want to get to, just because this has to do with the Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls let David Nwaba go. He was a restricted free agent. They renounced his rights, and he is looking to sign with the Los Angeles Lakers. So this is a guy that LeBron has recruited again. David Nwaba was a guy that didn't even play half the season, but he was a part of the whole tanking Bulls. When Hoiberg's, he was like, no, we're not trying to lose games, but you still ended up with the 7th seed with a competent roster, right? So I don't know. This is a guy that LeBron wanted, and he's most likely going to be wearing a Laker uniform here in the next couple of days. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I'm still laughing at the taking Bulls thing.
Hoiberg, man. That's what he wanted to do.
No, but that just reminds me of the Chicago Black Sox that happened in the 1900s.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I can tell you one guy that's going to be upset, and that's going to be our reoccurring guest, Jake Stevenson, because he's a big Nwaba fan.
Yeah.
Personally, the Bulls are so bad, I have converted and hopped on the bandwagon to the Indiana Pacers, so until they fire Gary Paxton, I will be a Pacers fan. I don't really care what they do. They just keep making awful decisions.
The problem for me is I really like all the guys on the Bulls, and they really can't play together and win games. So it's really hard for me to see these guys go, but at the same time, I'm like, oh, hey, maybe that guy was a problem. I mean, he probably was. We won, 25 games last year?
Yeah.
Can't really go anywhere but up from here, so it doesn't matter what they do.
Right.
So good for him. I'm glad to see he's going to the Lakers. Maybe he'll get a shot at some playoff experience and be able to develop into the league a little bit better than he would with the Bulls. So good for him. Not a bad move for the Bulls.
All right, one last thing I want to mention is Jeremy Lin, whose career has not been anything for the past 3 seasons, really. He got traded from the Brooklyn Nets. If you knew he still played for the Nets, he got traded from the Brooklyn Nets and now plays for the Atlanta Hawks, who are in a rebuilding mode. I'm not sure what their thought process is with that one. Do you guys have any thoughts on Jeremy Lin to the Atlanta Hawks?
Dude's got sweet hair.
He's got yeah. He still is rocking the hair. That's always been his signature. But
the insanity was 6 years ago.
Yeah,
it's been over since then.
Yeah, not really anything to touch on there. Well, that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for us here at TCT. Make sure you go ahead and hit that red subscribe button down below. We really appreciate it. Make sure you hit that bell icon next to it so we don't miss a beat. Also, don't forget to follow us on our social media.
Basically, Twitter at twin or sports_twin. Follow us on Twitter.
Absolutely, we're always tweeting out. Try to get breaking news. We retweet funny stuff, and try to keep you up to date with all kinds of sports. Once again, want to thank Jake Stevenson for joining us on the show today. We really appreciate his commentary on Illinois basketball. But that's going to do it for us here. My name is Gavin Campbell. That's Tyson Snyder, Cale Fleming. We'll see you next time.
Peace.